Hello. Okay, let's record. Got it. Hello, greetings from Geneva. My name is Tina Morney. I'm the senior advisor here at IOE, and I'll be the master of ceremony of this event. Thank you for joining us as we go live to commemorate International Women's Day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. I am pleased to see that we have a diverse audience today. We have colleagues joining from all around the world. We have among us from governments, NGOs, international organizations. I see OECD and the ILO also just logged in. Multinationals, businesswomen, small, medium-sized enterprises, employee organizations, banks, foundations, and universities. Welcome to all of you. Without further ado, to kickstart our event, let us now listen to a message coming from IOE President and Deloitte Global Deputy CEO and Chief People and Purpose Officer, Ms. Michelle Parmalee.
Dear B20 and G20 members, dear partners, friends, and colleagues, it is a great honor for me as IOE President and as co-chair of the B20 Task Force on Future of Work, Skills and Mobility to welcome you today. This is the second conference out of the 4 which we will organize this year under the B20 India presidency. The One Global Women Empowerment Initiative is a legacy initiative from the B20 Indonesia Summit and focuses on empowering women entrepreneurs by developing an ecosystem that can provide access to financial, legal, and technical assistance to business players, increasing women's digital skills and leadership, and promoting the creation of a just and safe environment for women workers in the informal economy, including those in rural areas. The aim of OGWE is to promote inclusive, resilient, and sustainable global economic growth through women empowerment and to ensure continuity in the advocacy work on women empowerment between B20 presidencies, facilitate peer learning, and steer collective action. The discussion today will highlight the various government-led or government-backed initiatives from different parts of the world that are focused on empowering women in business and women in the workplace. We'll explore what works and what doesn't and how we can improve together. Women in business, in particular, those who own micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, women who work in the private sector, and women at the workplace all face certain challenges in accessing finance, accessing business networks, accessing economic opportunities, and many more. More support is needed, not just from governments, but also from international organizations, civil society, and stakeholders who have the influence to advance and progress women in the careers of their choosing. The private sector cannot do it alone and should not do it alone. It needs to be a collective and joint effort. It is our goal that OGWE, through the IOE Secretariat, can contribute to moving the needle on gender equality and women empowerment. As Maya Angelou once said, each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, for playing that video. As President Michelle highlighted, the One Global Women Empowerment Initiative, OGWE for short, aims to promote and advance women in business and women at the workplace. IOE is very pleased to be its permanent secretariat. I will now invite our Secretary General, Roberto Suarez Santos, to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Tina. I will not speak for too long. I just want to highlight our dedication as International Organization of Employers, our commitment to promote gender equality and women empowerment. We consider that a priority in our organization. We take that very seriously, and we see progress on many aspects, but still too many barriers which are yet prevented to take the rhythm that we should. We need to do further efforts. We need to do much more efficient partnerships with other organizations. We need to leverage opportunities to get women talent much more promoted. This is a win for all of us, a win for business, a win also for men. It's not a female agenda, it's a societal agenda. There is sufficient evidence, there's sufficient data that by supporting women entrepreneurs, having access to finance, by supporting women talent to take leading positions in organizations, we will get results at company, workplace, and society level. We will get a much more resilient, diverse, and sustainable development society. Again, as the title of this event is about, there is perhaps too much talk, but there is the perception that there is still not enough impact on the ground. As our president, Ms. Michelle Parmelet, has highlighted in her message, business cannot do it alone. We need your help. We need many governments that already are starting to work with the private sector. We need NGOs, we need trade unions in a positive, in a constructive manner. The initiative OGWE can also act as a vehicle to strengthen the advocacy for women empowerment, can facilitate much more peer learning, and more importantly, can steer collective action in this direction. I end my remarks by saying thank you to all participants, but thank you also to the panelists for its work with us, for its engagement with us, for women empowerment, for women in business, and for women in the world of work. A special thanks to the B20 leader, Mrs. Shinta Kamdani, to Mrs. Smita Aguargual, but also to the Minister of Employment of Guatemala, Sara Luna from the government of Mexico, our colleague, Mrs. Emily Dickens, also participated from one of our partner companies, SNER, and Mrs. Vittoria Giulietti from the International Labour Organization. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Roberto, for your remarks. May I now invite the distinguished co-chairs of OGWE. First to Ms. Shinta Kamdani. Selamat datang. OGWE is the brainchild and legacy initiative of B20 Indonesia. OGWE would not exist without you as a founding member. Please, Ms. Shinta, you have the floor.
Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. It's great to see you all, and I'm so happy to be here and sharing this with Zoom with all of you. As mentioned, my name is Shinta Kamdani. I serve as the chair of the B20 Indonesia, and I'm also currently the International Advocacy Caucus member of the B20 India. I'm very pleased to see it. India is taking over from Indonesia and continuing this legacy that we started in the B20 Indonesia. I think the issue of women empowerment has always been very important. And I'm sure we are all aware what the significant economic gains can be if women were to participate equally in the global economy. And how, as a significant engagement group of the G20, the B20 also plays a crucial role in promoting women empowerment and advocating as well for a gender-empowered global economy. Last year, we highlighted the importance of a cross-border G20-wide knowledge sharing and investment in women-led enterprises, while keeping in mind the G20 unique collections of economies and democracy. Through the B20 Indonesia Women in Business Action Council, we put forward 3 strategic imperatives to move towards gender parity, which are empowering women entrepreneurs, enabling women digital and leadership capability, as well as promoting safe and equitable workplace. However, more than policy recommendations, B20 Indonesia committed to make a difference by creating a concrete legacy that will provide the critical elements of success to any woman who wants to enter and grow in entrepreneurship, as well in the workforce. This is what led us to build the OGWE, we call it OGWE platform, One Global Woman Empowerment, as an ecosystem to enable growth, development, and acceleration of women-led businesses and women in the workforce. We established focused multilateral efforts to integrate an initiative within the B20 and all other development organizations that provide also critical roles for women, in which I'm pleased to also and appreciate the role of IOE, International Organization of Employers, that has accepted the role to become the permanent secretariat and become a critical enabler in bringing this vision into reality. So thank you again, Michelle and Roberto. I think this is going to be a very big journey for us and how to make this vision a reality. And I think we have also come a long way when since we first launched the blueprint of the legacy to promote and advocate the women empowerment between the B20 presidency. And OGWE has contributed also in giving influence and raising the voice to policymakers in the G20. However, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure the of this global platform and scale up our work to even greater length, we need your support and commitment. And that's why, against this backdrop, I humbly invite you to be part of this legacy by joining OGWE as signatory in the steering committees to actively enable and participate in the design of OGWE work plan, offer guidance and oversee the concrete result to accelerate the progress of and gender-empowered global economy. And I look forward to the discussion today. And thank you, Smita, to agreeing also to co-chair this. And I hope for success in B20 India in bringing forward this legacy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shinta Kamdani, for your welcoming remarks. I now turn over to Ms. Smita Agarwal. Namaste. The G20 presidency is held by India this year, and CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry, is the secretariat of the B20. Ms. Smita, our co-chair, is also representing one of the largest federations in the country. You now have the floor.
Thank you very much, Tina, and thank you, Ms. Shinta. I think on behalf of B20 India, I'd like to greet all of you with Namaste and greetings from India for everyone across the world. I know this is, everybody across is different timing, so it's morning, afternoon, and evening for each one of us. And this is a great opportunity, and I'm very, very grateful to the initiative that Indonesia has taken in order to start OGWE, because this deserves a lot of appreciation for bringing together one of the most important issues as we deliberate upon important issues which are facing the world today in the G20 forum. The work that has been initiated is being taken up by B20 India, and we're very happy to be leading this conversation as we talk about women-led development in addition to our objectives of women empowerment. And I think we believe very strongly that the world has come to that time that the development that we look forward to in the next decade needs to be led by women in many, many facets and across all spectrums, whether it is in the political or the administration areas or in corporates or in social justice. Women have a very, very important role to play, and they can lead this rather than only being spectators or stand-bys, just watching what is happening. What we have very proudly been able to do with the work that B20 India has initiated is the mainstreaming of all the agendas related to women in all the B20 task forces. So whether it is related to skilling and the future of work, or global value chains, or the digitization and financial inclusion, each of the B20 task forces are working independently to identify the issues related to women and to bring them into the policy recommendations that will be shared with G20. And this is something that will be a huge step ahead. And as we move from presidency to presidency, I hope that we will be able to take concrete steps this year. The theme of today's session is really, really apt, because it's all about more action and less talk now. And we need to move the needle, to show what is being done in order to fuel this women-led development. We're extremely happy to be associated with IOE and really grateful to IOE for having taken this up as a permanent secretariat and facilitating all these conversations and these important dialogues. The mainstreaming of women's agenda will incorporate in itself the empowering of women entrepreneurs. We need to develop an ecosystem that can provide all women entrepreneurs with the financial, legal, and technical assistance that they require. As they enter into the entrepreneurial ecosystem, we need to work towards empowering women with digital skills and giving them positions of leadership. And also, it is extremely important and must not be overlooked that a just and safe environment is something that's very, very crucial for women as they enter into the workplace, especially because we know that a large number of women, especially in developing countries across the world, work in informal economies and sometimes in rural areas. This kind of a enabling ecosystem that we could possibly take steps towards building through both enabling a physical and a digital infrastructure that can address issues that women face every day in their workplace will go a huge way in order to bring more and more women into the labor force. And we know that having more women into the workforce and more women in business is something that has a huge economic positive impact across the world on all of our economies and on the world as a whole. The work that we have been doing under CII and the Indian Women Network is to work collaboratively with the administration and the government and with corporates, and also to bring a change in the mindset of women themselves, for them to understand their capabilities and the possibilities that can open up for them once they mainstream into the workforce and they start contributing to the economy of a country. We need to bring in more and more diversity into the workforce, and this brings more innovation, more capability, and in the rapidly changing environment that we see today with the geopolitical, economic, and technology changes that are happening across the globe, having more women into the workplace is something that can only be treated as a very, very huge positive for all of us. We all know as we power ahead towards building our own economies, there is a shortage of talent, and women are being increasingly looked at as an opportunity to fill these gaps. And the supply chains in future are going to incorporate this very, very intrinsically into the work that is being done and how sourcing is done globally. So these steps are something that we hope that the conversation that we have today and the ones that will follow under OGWE we'll be able to identify concrete steps. We will be able to come out with policy recommendations and concrete actions that we can recommend to corporates and that can be incorporated across each of our countries. It's so wonderful to have a platform like this where we can learn from each other, where we can understand the challenges that are being faced by each of our own countries and the different women that enter into the workplace into different stratas. And therefore, I welcome this opportunity deeply, and I'm really, really thankful to Ms. Shinta and to this entire esteemed forum for us to be on this platform and to have this possibility of creating a real difference and moving the needle forward and bringing more and more women the kind of quality of life and the sort of empowerment that they need. Thank you so much, and thank you, Tina.
Thank you, Ms. Sumita, for your welcoming remarks. We are doing very well on time. So let us now go into the panel discussion part, just a conversation with gender equality champions. I am very pleased and honored to welcome Honorable Minister, Mr. Rafael Eugeni Rodriguez Payese, Minister of Labor and Social Welfare of Guatemala. Welcome. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for joining us so early in the morning in Guatemala. You now have the floor for the opening remarks to set the scene for our excellent panel. Please go ahead, Your Excellency, you have the floor.
Thanks first for having me here and to let us share with you what we are doing in Guatemala to address this objective. I'm honored to share what the government commitment is to promote gender equality and women empowerment. On this occasion, I want to address the subject from the perspective of what we're doing as the government altogether to address violence against women. And why? Because in order to eliminate these flagellum so that women can live free and freely choose the employment they want. The Ministry of Labor and Social Welfare, on the grounds to promote social and economic rights throughout the free choice of employment, minimum economic conditions to ensure wellness and dignified life, fairly paid work, and equal opportunities for women empowerment, is member of the National Coordinating Mechanism for Prevention of Domestic Violence and Violence Against Women, and also is part of the Comprehensive Care Model for Women Victims Violence, called MIME, as is known in Guatemala. Both mechanisms respond to international human rights standards and set up the regulatory framework to guarantee the full exercise of women's fundamental freedoms, especially the right to live and life free of violence. As ministry, we have coordinated and worked all together with the Presidential Secretariat for Women to link the institutional programmatic instruction and to align our interventions to the National Plan for the Prevention and Eradication of Violence Against Women, the PLANOVI. We have also worked on a joint route for the installation of a technical committee with the Secretariat for Women, the Ministry of Finance, Secretariat of Planning and Programming, Presidential Commission Against Discrimination and Racism, Guatemalan Indigenous Development Fund, National Council for Care of People with Disabilities, and under the leading of the Ministry of Labor to address substantial agenda focused on the installation of breastfeeding rooms in the executive organism institution. And why this will serve, we have seen, as reference to highlight aspects that represent real obstacles for women in work. In the context of the implementation of the PLANOVI and the work with the CONAPREV, the Ministry of Labor, throughout the National Office for Women, has carried out training workshops on women's human rights and the working woman section to strengthen the friendly space for breastfeeding, training for employers and workers on labor rights and obligations. Along the work of this section, it has been possible to contribute to the awareness of non-discrimination of women in the workplace throughout interventions of orientation, divulgation, training, organization, and involvement of women in the workplace, as well as the monitoring and surveillance of labor rights and obligations for working women to achieve equal employment opportunities. In the context of the MIME that I said earlier, the Ministry of Labor from March 2021 to March 2023 developed the design of the electronic file for female referred by the Comprehensive Care Model for Women's Victims of Violence, led by the Public Ministry through a single window system. The service provided by the Ministry of Labor aimed at labor advice, labor intermediation, job training, and labor rights protection. These efforts focused on designing a life project, breaking the cycle of violence, and strengthening the economic autonomy of women. The Ministry of Labor has classified 6 modalities that we want to share with you of cases of women and users and victims who have been referred to the labor portfolio services, to which a total of more than 2,000 women have been benefited in this recently implemented model. At least approximately 400 women are victims referred from the single window that requires social and economic empowerment services. 358 women have been summoned up and receive attention in the first 48 hours. 190 women are in an active process of social and economic empowerment. 45 women have been advised on labor matters and labor rights in the working women section, and 277 have been assisted through employment services from the General Directorate of Employment. More than 270 out of this figure have been benefit from labor intermediation in accordance with their curriculum. 6 have been technical trained for employment, and almost 30 were assisted by the General Labor Inspectorate. 15 of them were reivindicated from their labor rights, and 11 were advised to claim their labor benefits payment. It is important to remark that 90% of the process of social and economic empowerment of women victims were adequately ended. On the other hand, more than 100 processes are closed without being finalized by the victim, with the purpose to provide a specialized victimological and differential approach required for women's victims' violence. As part of the national and international commitments on equal opportunities and treatment, the Ministry of Labor facilitates employability service to strengthen the economic empowerment of women who demand it, towards compliance with SDG 8 and the construction of an equal society between women and men. We think that ending violence against women is a principle where we have to start in order for women to live free of violence. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Your Excellency, for those remarks. We are attentive and very interested to hear what you said about what the government's doing, especially in terms of training employers and workers and empowering, giving economic autonomy of women, and in particular, the making sure that the welfare, the safety of women is prioritized by their government, and this would contribute to the gender equality of women empowerment. So thank you, Your Excellency. I understand you have to leave because you have meetings all day. So we wish you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us. Thank you very much. Now, let us go now to Ms. Sara Gabriela Luna Camacho. Sara Luna, she's the first secretary permanent from the Permanent Mission of Mexico to the United Nations and other international organizations based in Geneva. Sara Luna, according to recent studies, only a handful of countries in the world have more than 50% of women in parliament, either in single or lower houses. Mexico is one of them. Other countries include Rwanda and Nicaragua, for example. You represent a government which clearly believes in gender equality, and we have also seen you in action for this at the ILO and at the international level. Does the government have any specific initiatives which have worked or are working, especially in advancing and offering opportunities for women in business and in the workplace? Over to you, Sara Luna.
Thank you, Tina. Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you for inviting me to participate in this very important panel, and congratulations for the OGWE initiative led by Indonesia, before now India, and all the business community. It is indeed an amazing effort to achieve gender equality in the world of work. So my recognition. And indeed, for Mexico, gender equality and inclusion is a priority at all levels, in all walks of life, let's say. I can share with you some of the initiatives and even the legal framework that we have in the context of Mexico, the general laws that we have for gender equality and access to a life free of violence, and also the Mexican norm, which is an incentive for both the public and private sector. But I think in the private sector has worked very well because it's the government's incentive and recognition to all those workplaces where gender equality, where there are policies in place to achieve gender equality. And there are criteria, of course, we recognize as a government, we give recognition to those companies and workplaces where they try to tackle the pay gaps, for instance, to ensure a workplace free of violence and harassment. We also recognize those that have done an effort to put in place policies to balance the world personal and work life, providing different services or different benefits to women. So we are doing that actively. And also I want to spin off a little bit the question and talk a little bit about what do we do at the global level, since I'm a diplomat and I represent Mexico in the ILO, in the International Labor Organization. And there is one of the places at the global level where we are trying to implement really actively our feminist foreign policy. And one would think, but what does it have to do with business and equality in the business realm? It has to do a lot, and it has to do also with equality everywhere else. And I would say why, because one of the pillars of our feminist foreign policy is to promote indeed gender equality and inclusion across all the UN system, including ILO. And in the context of the ILO, we're being very vocal and also chirurgical in identifying in which places the policies for gender equality and inclusion are more needed. And of course, it is obvious for us that in the workplace is where the biggest structural barriers are faced by women in order to advance their career, but also to be inserted in the labor market, and also to gain the same wages as men, and so on and so forth. So we see this feminist foreign policy and an all-encompassing approach to try to push as much as we can this agenda everywhere in the world, in the UN system, in our bilateral engagement as well, and with other stakeholders, including business. And I would say, and I will stop there, is that this foreign policy is not only for what people from Mexico does abroad. It also has a very strong pillar, talking about the workplace, a very strong pillar on changing the culture and the incentives, some good and some bad, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs itself. So we are walking the talk in a way. We are, yes, promoting it at the global level in our negotiations, in our statements, and in our standard settings in the ILO everywhere. But ultimately, this foreign policy has also a very specific pillar on changing the narrative, the culture towards the inclusion of women and the promotion of women's rights, of course, in the context of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So if there's time later, I can share some initiatives in particular that we are putting in place in the context of the feminist foreign policy. But indeed, this is, going back to your question, this is a priority, and we're doing a lot in many fronts in Mexico and abroad. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah Luna. I take interest in you mentioning about the change of culture. I think it's so important. It's the most difficult thing to do from a policy perspective, but it's really necessary to really work collectively together to change this culture and to promote this narrative. And I take also with interest the feminist foreign policy that you mentioned. You're leading by example, really. So this is hopefully going to inspire other countries also to follow suit. So thank you, Sarah Luna, for your interventions, and we'll come back to you if there are any questions in the chat. And colleagues, please don't hesitate to flood the chat if you have any questions at all. My colleague Mahira is monitoring that, and we will present some of those questions to our panelists at the end of the session. So may I now please go to Miss Emily M. Dickens. She is the Chief of Staff, Head of Public Affairs, and Corporate Secretary of SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. Welcome, Emily. Thank you for joining us. SHRM is a great partner of IOE, and one of the priorities that we work closer together is on gender. In fact, for colleagues' information, the creative title, Less Talk, More Action, actually came from the SHRM team. So thank you for that. Emily, as the leading organization with over 318,000 HR and business executive members in 165 countries, your mission is to elevate the HR profession and empower people and workplaces by advancing HR practices and by maximizing human potential. In fact, this year, I can see the logo there. SHRM is celebrating 75 years of driving workplace change. Now, Emily, from your experience, what can help bridge the gender divide? How can HR help retain more women and move toward gender equality at all ranks and at all decision-making levels? Over to you, Emily.
Tina, thank you so much, and good morning. It's exciting to see so many women from around the world, and happy post-International Women's Day to all of you. Thank you for mentioning our 75th year. And so I'm going to start with one of the things that my team and I decided to do this year for our 75th anniversary on the policy side, which in the United States, we think is a way that we can address some of the issues that are impacting the flexibility of workplaces. So one, we decided that there are 3 key pieces of legislation that are so outdated, they no longer serve the modern workplace. So our focus this year is convincing Congress and anyone who will listen that we need to update FMLA, FSLA, and the Immigration Act of 1990. Those 3 pieces of legislation focus on workplace flexibility, what happens in the workplace, and we think they no longer align with the workplaces of today. You know, we're celebrating the 30th anniversary of FMLA. So if you think about it, the workplace has changed so drastically in 30 years in that just one piece of legislation. So I think that's important. I'll also say that I want to encourage all of you who are here and are having interest in this to continue to follow. I want to thank the IOE for taking and serving as the secretariat for the One Global Empowerment Platform, and we're really proud of our efforts here. But to your question about how I think, and I'm going to do this in 2 parts, because I think I've just come from 3 days on the road listening to various audiences about some of the issues we're seeing in the workplace. And I just love this title because, ladies, we're not acting enough. Our colleagues are not acting enough. And we really have got to focus on this to bridge the gender divide. We need to stop focusing on the divide itself. And we need to leverage our networks, our experiences, our sponsors, our mentors, and other allies to put our heads down and just get this done. All of this talk has led to the leaders in our workplaces stepping away because it appears that no matter what they do, it's never enough. And guess what? As their partners, we're not doing enough. There are women in workplaces today that are coasting. Either they haven't improved their skills or they feel unseen or unheard and they haven't told a soul. Here's my challenge to them. So stop waiting for others to change these circumstances. If you aren't a top performer, invest in your professional development. Proactively look for mentors. If your workplace isn't working for you, act with your feet. You don't have to stay. The power of choice is not one that we lean into enough. And at any moment, we can choose to find a workplace culture that works better for you. And if you have the skills, you have the leverage. Why are we staying in places that don't work for us? Business goes where the talent goes. And if we move with our feet and less with our mouths, lending our talents to cultures that appreciate your skills and reward you through promotion and development, we can make a huge impact on this divide. Next, let's stop ostracizing our allies. Personally, for me, male bosses, mentors, and sponsors have had an impact on my experience and advancement in the workplace. That help came through action, my work. Mentorship is no longer the be-all and end-all for emerging professionals. Sponsorship, directly providing job opportunities or lobbying on others' behalf, can catalyze careers and organizational growth. And once you have benefited from that sponsorship, it's your responsibility to act again. Create opportunities for women and men in your workplaces. You also asked me, what can HR do? So my response to you again is that HR can't do it alone. These efforts must be led from the top. And with all the focus on what large companies are doing, we forget that the majority of businesses, at least in the United States, are small and mid-sized. They don't have the staff or the resources to expend on multi-layer DE&I plans that often end up on a shelf. What they do have is the ability to identify what they want their culture to be. So I'm so happy that my colleague mentioned culture. We didn't practice it, but it's so important we talk about culture. If they want a culture of inclusiveness, it is then HR who should be leading and developing that culture that works for that particular organization, its people, and its customers. And I think it's important that people understand that culture just doesn't have to work for the employees. Once they can articulate what that culture is, including examples of the behaviors associated with that culture, then HR becomes the ambassador of that organization's culture. They work side by side with the executive team and the CEO to infuse this culture in its behaviors in the organization. This means job candidates are made aware of the culture in interviews. They read about it in the job posts. They hear about it in the phone interview. They hear about it in the in-person interviews. They're asked what resonates with them about that culture in the interview process. And once hired, they hear about it in orientation, then at quarterly meetings, in the weekly newsletter, etc. Do you see where I'm going? HR must create an action-oriented culture that promotes accountability, is judged as part of performance, and recruits and retains those that live and breathe that culture. HR also works closely with the leadership team to develop talent in alignment with this inclusive culture. They should point out gaps in diversity on every team. That includes if a team is all women. It includes if a team is all Black. Everyone must be held accountable for inclusivity to promote a pipeline of talent that reflects the leadership and the people in that organization. Not just the women, but remote workers, people with disability, people without degrees. Lastly, HR must offer benefits that meet the needs of that workforce, not every workforce. So I'll say it again. It must meet the needs of that particular workforce, not every workforce. These benefits are not just related to motherhood. Every woman on your team's not a mom, and the offering should include coaching, mental health support, stretch assignments, certification, student loan or tuition reimbursement. Benefits remove barriers to success and clear the way for people to lead by providing solutions to problems that may be impacting their professional growth. As many of you said this morning, we can't do this alone. Let's invite others to join us through our actions of inclusiveness, through choosing change with our feet, and through more action and less talking. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And I fully resonate. I mean, what you said just fully resonates. I mean, you mentioned about a lot of women feeling unseen or unheard. And I think a lot of women here might have the same feeling as well. And just to move with our feet, I think that's the key takeaway that I got from you. We need to leverage our networks, of course. And you also highlighted the importance of mentorship and sponsorship. So it's and to get rid of all the barriers to success, I think it's really, really key. Thank you, Emily, for spending some time with us. I understand that you've been traveling a lot and you just came off a red-eye flight. So thank you so much for being with us. And I wish you also a great rest of the day. Thank you, Emily, for joining us. Let us now go to Ms. Maria Victoria Giuletti. She's the Senior Specialist at the Bureau of Employers Activities, our partners at the International Labour Organization, the ILO. So she is based in the Port of Spain in Trinidad and Tobago. Hi, Vicky, welcome. The ILO has mainstream gender internally and in all of its activities at the regional and national levels too, through the ILO field offices. We understand that among the many ILO activities, there is one in particular which stands out as a best practice. There's a business network for women in the Latin American region, which of course IOE is happy to support and be part of. The network is very active. Can you tell us what is the added value of this network and what would you say are the secret ingredients to promote its success and engagement?
Well,
Over
thank you
to
very
you,
much.
Vicky.
Thank you very much, Tina. It's a pleasure to see you, and it's always a pleasure to share a space with my IOE friends. So, and all of you. So, thank you very much for this invitation. As you said before, the Latin America and the Caribbean Business Women Network began in 20.
Vicky, you unmuted for some reason. I'm not sure what just happened.
I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. You just muted for 10 seconds, so please continue.
Okay. Well, the Latin America and the Caribbean Business Women Network was created in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Within the framework of the Win-Win project, that it was a project implemented jointly by the ILO, UN Women, and the European Union, and it was led by the Bureau for Employers Activities of the ILO. But going directly to your questions, so not to take long time, I can brief the ingredients that guarantee the engagement and successful of this Latin America and the Caribbean women business network. Sorry, the tone of the top, the joint work, and the commitment. The tone of the top, first of all, due to the strong commitment and conviction of the director of the Bureau for Employers Activities of the ILO, Deborah France, the unconditional support of the IOE's General Secretary, Roberto Suarez, and the IOE ILO Coordinator, Maria Anzorregui, and of course, all your help and assistance, Tina, during our route together, who were the roots that enabled the creation of this network. The joint effort of all, the joint work and effort of all the specialists for employers' activities of the South Cone, Central America, Latin America, and the Caribbean, my predecessor at that moment, that worked together with the IOE and with the women, with the Latin America women, were the water, we can say that were the water to allow these networks to grow. And the strong commitment, passion, and conviction of the Latin America and the Caribbean business women who know that the only way to turn the COVID-19 crisis into an opportunity to thrive was working all together to achieve that purpose. This is the secret of its success. Work all together, the collective work and the collaboration. We also have to think that it was the momentum. At that moment, we were all very surprised with all the situation. The network was created in May, in the midst of all the pandemic situation. And the business women in Latin America were looking for solutions, for spaces to share and to brainstorm on what they can do, which was the path to follow in order to recover from the COVID-19 crisis and their own business and their own companies. So I think that also what helped a lot to success and engagement was the momentum, and that all the team had an open mind and clear collaboration, that collective work and the collaboration were the only way and the only path to guarantee economic recovery from COVID-19. So for the last, I want to take, but not for that least important, I want to take also the opportunity to congratulate the B20 members who have been working since 2020 on this, on everything. Has a committee that it was dedicated exclusively to gender and business women issues, and launched this one global women empowerment initiative that I think that it is the best way to promote, it's one of the best ways to promote business women, to amplify their voice, to foster the entrepreneurship and also the skills in technology and innovation, and all things that are important in this moment, and they are the lighthouse of this initiative. So congratulations also to you, Tina, that I know that you have a lot of doing there, and to all the B20 and the IOE for supporting this initiative again. So thank you very much for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure to share space with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for your remarks. Indeed, the tone at the top is so important. Of course, it will not be successful without the commitment, as you said, or the passion of the women in business. And indeed, it is a collective effort. And I think one of the most difficult things that women face is that they feel like they're alone. So this platform would it acts as a role model. You can see other women in business as well going through the same thing, and then you have an open channel there where you can provide assistance and that peer-to-peer learning experience as well. Thank you so much, Vicky, for your interventions. So let us now
Thanks
go
to
to
you.
Thank you so much. Let us now go to Ms. Lida Prima. She is an OGWE signatory, Director of Capital Markets Strategic Initiatives of the Bank of Montreal. So let us now fly to Canada. Lida, you also made a pledge last year during the B20 Indonesia presidency. What is your hope for OGWE and the B20 G20 leadership when it comes to setting the narrative for women in business and the policy interventions or deliverables which can concretely improve women's chances of success in business and in the world of work? Lida, over to you.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me to join the conversation. I'm truly honored to be here. I'll take this as a two-part question and start with OGWE and join all my colleagues in applauding the IOE for taking action and becoming the secretariat for OGWE, which will ensure the continuity needed for successful realization of such an ambitious initiative. And so why is OGWE important? Let me take you on a little data journey to help explain. Now, I'm a staunch proponent of including behavioral economics in any analysis, and there has been a clear shift in mindset over the last 5 to 10 years in the global macroeconomic sphere, and longer, but let's stay relevant. So most companies no longer trade on fundamentals alone, and consumers have learned to purchase even basic necessities online, which has shrunk the global marketplace. I can go to Desert Cart and buy anything I want, have it shipped from anywhere in the world. But are women business owners taking advantage of this consumer shift? And while we know that COVID-19 advanced technological innovation and digitalization exponentially, we also need to ask ourselves, and then what? Behavioral economics also plays a decisive role in decisions made by business owners. Access to capital and efficient use of working capital are strategic elements to business growth and ultimate success, especially during lean years in revenue generation and global economic downturns. The Women's Enterprise Organization of Canada released a study in 2022 entitled Bootstrap or Borrow. The thesis centered on improving equity and access to financing for women and non-binary entrepreneurs in Canada. It found that 66% of respondents intended to grow their business in the next 3 years, and they cited that women-owned businesses in Canada have been found to deliver greater value per dollar invested and to have exceptional repayment records. Now, this kind of growth will directly impact Canada's GDP to the upside and clearly provide a great opportunity for financial institutions as well. But the perception of debt by women business owners presents a unique challenge. Nearly 8 in 10 acknowledge that they hate owing money, and 6 in 10 report that it feels too risky to take on debt. Moreover, 6 in 10 said they took pride in building their business without outside capital, and half thought outside capital meant giving up too much control. But does this perception and behavior lead to lost growth opportunities? Of course it does. If women business owners won't go to a financial institution to talk about a loan or credit facility, how on earth are they ever going to find out about traditional trade finance products or alternatives for working capital like receivables purchase finance and supply chain finance, so they can scale their business and perhaps one day transact in a merger acquisition? So what if there was a place where women business owners could learn about the benefits of not self-funding their entire operation and instead using borrowed money to capitalize on growth opportunities? And what if they could also find financial institutions that had focused programs geared towards women business owners? What if they could even find female venture capitalists and angel investors who understood their unique challenges and could not only invest in their business, but also guide them through the growth process? And what if they could find an entire global network of like-minded women who want to help them succeed, all in one place? My hope is that OGWE will provide all of these things and more. Now, if you'll indulge me a little longer, I'd like to say a few words on the G20 and B20. So behavioral economics and the psychology of decision-making plays an outsized role in the actions of the G20 and even the B20, where policy recommendations are formulated for consideration. But having been through almost a decade of B20 cycles, and frankly, 2 decades of G7 and G20 cycles, I can honestly say this is wholly underconsidered. So every year we're long on ideas, but short on moving the needle. Of course, the rotating presidency plays a big factor because priorities change from year to year based on the host country, but so too does that of the B20 organizing body. The policy recommendations have gotten longer, and the precision with which they need to be crafted has largely given way to compiling research papers. And consensus of members is also an added element at both levels. But if the B20 uses this as a starting point, it would be able to provide poignant policy recommendations that have a higher probability of being adopted in the communique. Now, what does that even mean? I'll give you an example. When I was telling my mother about this panel today, she asked me how I was going to pick topics to focus on when there were so many that needed attention. And just like I had a limited amount of time for my remarks, which I've clearly blown through, the G20 has a limited attention span. Therefore, the fastest way to overwhelm them into non-action is to ask them for everything. So what the B20 needs to do is ask them for 1 to 2 things per topic. And that's not 1 to 2 things with 50 sub-bullets. It's truly 1 to 2 things that are easy to understand, where they can focus their efforts and that have far-reaching outcomes. I mean, look what happened in Brisbane 2014 when they committed to 25 by 25. And for those who aren't familiar, it was to decrease the gender gap in the workforce by 25% by 2025. While progress has varied across countries, real structural change has been made nonetheless. And for more information, I'll direct you to the IOE website where you'll find the full Deloitte IOE report. Now, strategically important to recognize is that every country is in a different stage of their gender equality journey. Therefore, we must present the G20 with recommendations where they can take their national circumstances into account, thereby finding that elusive consensus. But does such a unicorn exist? Well, it sure does, but I'm really running over time now, so I'll leave that as the cliffhanger for now. And I'll wrap it up by tying it all back to less talk, more action. So for OGWE, I'll echo some of my colleagues again and say, for everyone listening in today, this is my call to action, to become a champion of change and push your companies to become signatories and get involved. A community only works if there are actual people. We need young, we need experienced, aspiring, seasoned. We need all of you, so please join us. For the B20, let's go back to basics and stop authoring research papers. Let's swing for the fences with one big ask. And for the G20, I'd say be bold, be like women who are like water. And I wish I knew who to attribute this analogy to, so please message me if you know, but it's not mine. But water always finds a way forward. Water never goes backwards when it hits an obstacle. It forges a new path and keeps moving forward. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lida, for your interventions. Indeed, behavioral economics is missing in a lot of the policy debates. I have not come across it actually. So I think this is something that policymakers who are listening in right now should also take note and investigate this concept of behavioral economics in policy development, especially when it comes to moving the needle on gender. Indeed, one of the, from our own research and our own findings, access to finance and access to venture capital are 2 of the largest challenges for women in business in general. And this was highlighted also by various experts at the last OGWE meeting. And the fact that you mentioned that a lot of women hate owing money, I think that's also a mindset barrier, right? So I think it's really good to hear that the Bank of Montreal is also promoting financial inclusion for women in particular. So, and I fully agree with you when it comes to the B20 and G20 track. It's really not about having as like a research paper, as you said, not as to have too long of recommendation, but really, 1 or 2 low-hanging fruit, which, which is implementable, which is actionable at the national level. And I really appreciate your call to action. It's really, really important to have the voice of an OGWE signatory promoting OGWE as well. Thank you so much, Lida, for your interventions, especially joining in so early in the morning as well. Let us now go to Dr. El Sayed Torki from the Federation of Egyptian Industries. So let us now fly to Egypt. Dr. El Sayed, welcome. Thank you for joining us. FEI is a member of IOE and have been active on the gender front. We're seeing a lot of activities as well at the federation level. For example, we also work with the ILO Bureau of Employer Activities, ACTAM, through the Corporate Social Responsibility Unit to raise awareness of corporate social responsibility among Egyptian companies. For example, to date, there are 43 professionals from over 25 countries from Greater Cairo and the Greater Alexandria region, which benefited from this training. Can you tell us what other initiatives the Federation is undertaking to raise awareness on the challenges faced by women entrepreneurs or women in the private sector? Over to you, Dr. El Sayed.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share with you the efforts of the Federation of Egyptian Industries in empowering women in business in Egypt. Gender equality and women's empowerment is a top strategic priority for the Federation of Egyptian Industries long time ago. We have 19 industrial sector chamber of industry with around 100,000 industrial companies in all different sectors of the industry. We have cooperated with the ILO in 2014 to establish a Women in Business unit and a CSR unit, not only to raise the awareness of our members, but also to involve other industrial, other sectors of the economy, like the banking sector and the insurance sector, about the impact of gender equality and economic empowerment of women on the GDP, on the productivity, and on competitiveness of the companies. And so in order to widen the spectrum of the relevant stakeholders who can support gender equality and women's empowerment, we have stressed on the CSR aspect of the women's empowerment and highlight the linkages with the SDGs. This has helped us a lot in finding more partners. Both of these units is currently implementing a number of initiatives on social and economic empowerment of women, in cooperation with ILO, IOM, Population Council, UNFPA, UN Women, USAID projects, and some of the Egyptian companies and banks in Egypt. The main focus of this initiative is building the capacities of the different types of women in business. Students, fresh graduates, middle management, senior management, and board members, so that they can be more empowered in the workplace, marketplace, and the community place. In 2022, we have these initiatives has benefited around 500 women, where we have offered a very impactful capacity building programs, whether on the job training or off the job training. We have succeeded in finding new job opportunities for 80% of our targeted audience of women, and we are on the track to diversify the network of our partners and to involve some other ideas of cooperation with partners in order to more empowerment of women, and also in the health sector. So we are targeting the health to provide more health services and awareness raising for the women, especially in the factories. And we are targeting in the coming 2 years with one of our partners to raise the awareness of around 20,000 women. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. El Sayed. That's really impressive. The number of the outreach that you managed to get, even from the numbers that you gave us, is really, really impressive. So, and I take note also the importance of having a diversity of the audience. It really is about a collective effort, isn't it? I mean, this movement would not be possible without the partners and also international organizations, and also that you mentioned students as well. That's really interesting, involving the young generation to also get involved. So thank you so much, Dr. Al-Sayed, for your very concise also interventions. Really appreciate you joining us. So now, thank you very much to all our distinguished panelists. We will now go to we're actually doing really well on time. Thank you very much for helping me as a moderator when it comes to time management. So we will now invite 1-minute reactions from the B20 co-chairs that are, or members of the B20 India Task Force. By the way, they are 7 task forces and 2 action councils under the B20 leadership. May I now invite, I'm just looking at the chat here, Poonam Kaushik and Dr. Santamarai to take the floor for their reactions after what they've heard from all the different panel discussions. May I invite Poonam Kaushik to go first?
Hi, Christina. Am I audible to you?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right,
Go ahead,
thank
Ms.
you.
Poonam.
Sorry, I'm in a low bandwidth area. I could not put my video on.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. It was a great opportunity to learn from women from all over the world about how they feel about women empowerment. And I'm so glad that today I have been a part of this discussion, which are hosted by OGWE and how International Organization of Employers is being involved in this. As a women entrepreneur myself, if you allow me, I want to put a question to many of the women here that, we have observed not only in India, but many parts of the world where women have always complained about disparity in pay and not being on senior level positions versus their male counterparts. I wanted to understand that as a women fraternity across the world, do we feel that there is something that can be pushed from the B20, G20 perspective as a unanimous voice as to how do we want women to be positioned and not being talking about disparity anyway. Women should be always connected with their talents, their ability to deliver versus the male or the female counterparts that are there in the organizations. So what, according to all of you, I heard Julida in the final conversation, and I wanted to understand from all the women we have here today, is this the same across the world, and is this the disparity that we want to work towards, or is there working more towards enabling women to get there is something that we would like to work on too. So I think, that is one of my questions here. And I think Dr. Senta can also add to what I want to talk here today, as she's one of the very, very proficient entrepreneurs from India. So I would let her go next. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poonam, for those reactions and also the questions. I'll let some of the panelists think about that, give them a few more minutes just to think about a response. And I will now invite Dr. Santamarai to also give her reactions. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. In fact, first, I would like to thank you for getting my name right, because generally that goes wrong. So thank you. And more than a question, I would like to share my thought here. In fact, I would like to thank B20 and also IOE for this wonderful evening. So much of great insights and conversations. I think discussions like today, this followed by action, we can make the blueprint of the future. I think we are very safe there. And B20 India, we have been at the forefront of promoting policies and that drive inclusive growth. It has advocated for measures that support small and medium enterprises, promote women entrepreneurship, and enable access to finance. because finance being one of the main challenges faced by women entrepreneurs, that's one of the priority areas for us. In fact, B20 India has also called for policies that promote digital transformation, enhance infrastructure, and encourage sustainable development. While there is no silver bullet for achieving gender equality, right? Gender parity, digital technology, it is an equalizer. It presents us a wonderful opportunity to narrow the gender gaps. In fact, everyone should be given equal access to digital skills. No matter the race, gender, culture, we have to be given equal access to digital skills. It is the power to enable women to make the most of their potential truly tapped. Right, so this can turbocharge progress towards achieving gender equality, and most important, digital gives women a voice, right? So as today's topic says, we need less talk and more action. I think let us collaboratively work towards this goal of achieving equitable and sustainable world. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Santamarai, for those reactions, and also Ms. Poonam. I'm now inviting my colleague Mohira, because she has been monitoring the chat. I apologize, I did not take a look, but may I invite Mohira to also select one question from the chat, if any. Go ahead, Mohira.
Yes, we do have a lot of comments and greetings, but we don't have any specific questions yet. So I think we are safe there. We can open the floor for anyone who would like to. We have somebody who would like to take the floor.
Okay, I see. Thanks, Mohira. Thanks, colleagues. By the way, colleagues, do not hesitate to flood the chat. If you're working on anything on promoting gender or women empowerment for women in business or women at the workplace, please don't hesitate to share the publications from your organizations in the chat, because that we're also building a repository of reports which we could share with participants in future. So may I invite Ms. Shaima Meligi to take the floor for her question.
Thank you very much. I'm really very much thankful for the great meeting today. And I would like you to thank the IOE for adapting the OGWE initiative, because the sustainability of the initiative itself, it's very important. And also the slogan selected, "Less talk, more action," is very inspiring, especially when it comes from the employer's side. If we're saying less talk, more action, I would love to hear what will be the next steps. When we first heard about the OGWE, we understand that it's a platform that will collect mostly all the programs, initiatives, funding resources that will support women around the world, financial, non-financial capacity building, resources, and so. Especially under the presidency of Indonesia last year, we were focusing on three main topics: education, with a special focus on STEM education, supporting the startups and entrepreneurs, maybe designing special quotas for women in the general, let's say, buy, and enhancing trade and investment among women with a special focus on SMEs in a specific. So here I would like to ask, what will be the next steps coming from the pool of people attending the meeting, especially that we can use every and each one of us as a promoter to the initiative. I already started that, talking about OGWE in all the events. So is there any kind of specific plan and implementation that we can work on it, platform collecting all these kind of initiatives, programs, an interactive platform? And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Shaima. So that question is specifically for the OGWE Secretariat. So with your permission, I will answer that question. Thank you so much, Shaima. And I'm pretty sure this is a question that is in the minds of many of our participants who are joining in today. So with OGWE, it's not just organizing webinars. It's not just about, as you say, talking and no action. we have a specific work plan for this year and also next year. So this is under the leadership, of course, the two co-chairs, the co-chair from B20 Indonesia, who is the founding member of OGWE, and of course, the B20 India. In this regard, we want to give concrete help and assistance to women in business or women at the workplace. So for example, we see a lot of challenges faced by women, for example, in accessing finance, in accessing venture capital. So we will be providing a service, so will be a matchmaking service. And we also provide women in business access to legal services, which I think is also a major challenge. So we'll be looking for partners who can partner with us to provide technical guidance and advice to women who need help the most. Dr. Santa Maria also mentioned about digital skills. And this is something I think this is very key because it can open up a lot of doors. So we'll be partnering with companies who can help provide digital skills through micro-credentials. So it will be in a massive online open source, a MOOC, a MOOC source where women from any background, from any organization, from different levels of development can join in and access for free. So they could have access to learning how to do marketing 101, for example. How do I manage my finance? So these are the kind of concrete impact that we want to see on the ground. So these are just some of the plans. Of course, we are busy, mobilizing resources. That's a challenge also from our side, but we will jump on this momentum and this is our contribution to the movement to make sure that we are empowering women and giving them concrete deliverables on the ground. So this is our commitment, of course, as IOE, as the Permanent Secretariat. Mahira, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Within a few minutes, we had our chat room populated with lots and lots of questions. So I'm not sure we will have enough time to respond to all of them. So I will pick from the top, from Zvezdana. And she wanted to address probably if one of our panelists can pick up the question. Let me go there just quickly since it became very fast. Okay.
I think it got flooded and you had to find the question again.
Yes, it went up. Okay, 1 second.
And I think it's from Dana.
Yes, she's asking to fully utilize existing potential of current and future women entrepreneurs and to maximize the economic power and strategic support from the government. It's important, she says, even though states already develop many measures to support these programs, there's a space for additional movement. Is it possible to assist the development of women entrepreneurship through introduction of tax incentives for female entrepreneurs in the first years of business? If such practice exists, please share. And maybe I'll go with a couple more questions. Maybe panelists can pick which one to answer. From Stephanie Bucco, we have, is there any advice on whether or not women empowerment can be built within culture teams inside an organization? And does that need to be a separate team? We have also a question from Kelly Stamp. How do we get more involved in the United States? Because I noticed we do have a lot of participants connecting from the US at the very early hours. Do we have more? Yes.
I think that's, yeah, I think that's there's a lot of questions. We'll try to answer those questions in the chat as much as possible, but I please invite the panelists to raise their hand if they want to react to not all the questions clearly because we're running out of time, but perhaps answer one of the questions which I think you can answer and react to. So can I invite the panelists to raise their virtual hand? And in that order, I will invite the panelists to react. Lida, over to you.
Thank you. I thought I would respond to Ms. Poonam's question and go back to talking about the disparity between female and male counterparts, even in the workforce and elsewhere, and what can be done about that. I think what we have to remember is two things. One, as I mentioned, countries are in different parts of their gender equality journey. So there are things that need to be done, but I think that what needs to be done is comes in the form of structural change which the government has to kick off in the different countries. And they need to work in collaboration with business and then also with civil society. So you have to bring all three together and you have to figure out what is appropriate for each country. Now, I think the other part of that is what we're doing with OGWE and the B20. Now, this is a resurgence of action by B20 members to have OGWE and to move forward with it. So we're doing it for ourselves. We're helping decrease the disparity by having women in business, helping women in business. And so I think it's a two-part answer. We have to come to the table with something, which we're doing with OGWE. And then we also have to, the governments have to come to the table with structural policy changes that business and civil society should also be part of that conversation.
Thank you so much, Lida. That was so appropriate, and I think that educates me a lot about how we have to approach the three-pronged approach of government, civil society, and business for attaining a parity. Thank you very much, Lida.
Thank you, colleagues. Do we have any of the distinguished panelists who would like to take the floor? No. Okay, so thank you very much, colleagues, for taking the time. Let us now go towards the last part of the session. And thank you so much for making the preparations to speak at our panel and for contributing to such an interactive global discussion. We hope that you have learned something new today. We at the OGWE Secretariat certainly have. For the concluding part, may I invite Ms. Smita Agarwal to share her main key takeaways from today's event.
Thank you, Tina. And it's actually been a really, really wonderful discussion. I think a huge amount of knowledge that has been shared. It's been extremely heartening to see what is happening across the world. Just before I start to summarize the session today, the question that was being asked about, whether there can be any tax breaks or any sort of incentives that can be given to have more women entrepreneurs into the system. Again, I would say that, similar to what Lida was talking about, there are different governments at different stages of their gender equality journey, and there are many instances where such incentives are being given by governments depending on which are the focus areas. So these could actually range from sectoral sort of benefits that are being given, especially to women entrepreneurs, and a lot of incentives or supporting policies that are sometimes framed in terms of financial access. So I know for a fact that in India, there are a number of policies that are framed to allow ease of access to finance, and there is a certain mandate which all the financial institutions in the country have to adhere to in order to give a certain percentage of the lending that they do must benefit women entrepreneurs. And these are some of the initiatives that can be taken, depending on, again, what the gender equality journey is for a particular country. But of course, what we must also try and understand is that eventually it has to be an approach where it benefits both the people in the system, and when it comes to finance and when it comes to sort of keeping the promises that they make as entrepreneurs. We know that there is a very good track record for women entrepreneurs. They are conscientious, they're very prudent about borrowing money, and these are certain things that we can take heart from. It's been really wonderful to hear from everybody, and I hope, what I regret most is that this conversation is almost coming to an end, and I hope that we can really use this opportunity and this wonderful platform of OGWE throughout this year and of course going forward to keep these conversations going, because there's so much to learn, and every time we have one of these conversations, we know that there are certain takeaways for us and certain concrete action points that we can take back from here. And hopefully we are trying to involve more and more people who are working in the B20 task forces here as well, so that they can carry these messages back to the task force and to make sure that whatever is being talked about here under the OGWE platform and among the ages of all the leading women across the world is something that's incorporated in the policy recommendations that go to the G20 and also the discussions that the corporates have among themselves. It was wonderful to hear from the Minister of Guatemala. I think, Tina, we are all very grateful for him having spared his time with us today, and very heartening to see the work that is being done in the country, especially in terms of the work that they're doing for the safety and preventing of violence against women. And as we spoke earlier in some of our earlier discussions, some of the very basic things that women need in order to enter the workplace are things that governments need to be very, very cautious, very, very conscious about. And these are the safety and the sanitation and just an enabling ecosystem in the workplace in terms of the infrastructure that you are able to provide. And therefore, this is really wonderful to see what's happening there in Guatemala. Sarah, I think you talked about the payback and the pay gap that exists, and the fact that it is most important to have a workplace free of violence and harassment, and the importance of work-life balance. And we would definitely love to know more about the feminist foreign policy that you've spoken about. I think hopefully we will have opportunities to speak about this in the future and to learn from you more and more. And I'm sure there'll be takeaways for all of us to learn from what Mexico has been doing. And it's so important that this is being talked about at a global level and the countries championing this. So this is absolutely wonderful. Emily, I think the information that you were giving us is been really wonderful. The role of HR and how that must be supported right from the top, and the fact that you spoke about culture, and we all know that culture is something that is possibly one of the most difficult things to influence and to change over a period, but something that consistently needs to be addressed and over a period of time. And I think globally, we can see that change. We know that this gets influenced both by what the society thinks, what the governments think, what the corporates think, as well as what the women think about themselves and their own capabilities and their own requirements as to what they want to do in the workplace. And therefore, this is something that's really important for us to understand and to ensure that an action-oriented culture, which is really well disseminated, and if HR can take the lead in that to ensure that this is something that everybody, right from the person who's being recruited in the company to the leaders of an organization, understand and abide by that culture. This is something that will really move the needle ahead when it comes to building on women equality. What Vicky spoke about, and it's so inspiring to hear that there was an opportunity to use the time of the pandemic to create the sort of women business network that was created. And again, really strongly echo the words that Vicky said about working collectively and how important it is to have collaboration, and the working together of everyone for a common purpose is something that powers all of this. And this is hopefully something that we can emulate here in OGWE. I know, Lira, you voiced some of the concerns about the fact that this is a discussion that's been going on for almost more than a decade, and we do not know how much actually is the impact that has been created. But when OGWE is an organization and a platform that again is hugely welcome, because this can string together whatever is happening from presidency to presidency and keep that the motive and the purpose of ensuring that women's agendas are always at the top of our minds and are always something that we don't just talk about and have research papers about, but also have really concrete action about. And I think the leadership of B20, both from Indonesia and India, and hopefully, we will also try and bring Brazil into the conversation, will be something that OGWE will ensure that this, this time that we have during this, the sort of conversations that we are having, the sort of action points that we're getting from this, these will actually be put into action, and we can see credible, concrete changes that are coming in the system and benefits that are happening for women across the world. Again, some of these mindset shifts that you talked about how women feel about finance, how women feel about having more debt and feel more comfortable. Just the fact that this is happening through the work that the Bank of Montreal is doing, and something that, again, all of our own organizations can emulate. And the conversation that we have among our own individual networks is this is, again, things that we can talk about and ensure that it goes through. So it's really wonderful. And Tina, thank you so much. We've benefited hugely from this conversation, and I hope that we will continue to have this and be able to show more for the efforts that we're putting in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mita, for your excellent remarks. Please indulge us for 5 more minutes, if possible, while we close the session. I will now give the floor to you, Ms. Shinta, for your main key takeaways.
Thank you, Tina. And I will not take the 5 minutes. I think Mita has done a great job in trying to summarize what everybody's inputs are today, but it's been an enlightening discussion. And I think we see how priorities have changed across countries, how we pay more and more attention to gender equality. However, I think all women in business, in particular those who are in MSME, women who work in the private sector, all women at the workplace, all face these challenges in accessing finance, accessing business networks, accessing economic opportunities, and many more. So I want to underline the most important, which the private sector cannot do it alone. And I think it should not also do it alone. It needs to be a collective effort. And this word of collective effort has been, a lot of people has put this through. And I think more support is needed, not just from government, but also from international organizations, civil society, other stakeholders, I think, who have influence to advance and progress this issue. So IOE has a big job in delivering, trying to put this together, and that we don't want to come out just another discussion. So once again, OGWE could drive the effort toward empowering more women in business, become platform to act more and talk. I think that's what today's message is. We need to act more and talk less. And I think OGWE could be the perfect starting point of action to promote this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Shinta, for your kind main takeaways and your last words. Thank you all. So please, can we have a round of applause or virtual emojis to thank our co-chairs and all our guests today. So thank you so much for the preparation, your time. I'm happy to end this event by announcing that the OGWE signatories are joining forces once again to launch a message of hope, solidarity, and support by launching a joint statement. Please, Mohira, if you can add the link to the statement in the chat so colleagues are able to see it. Don't worry if you don't see it. It's all over the IOE website, on LinkedIn, on our Facebook, on Twitter. We'll also send it to you by email. And special shout out as well to the wonderful team, Roberto, Maria Paz, my partner Mohira. Thank you so much we've been working on this event together for a long time. Emily, Silvano, and of course, our amazing comms team, Jean, Maria, Sam, and Val. So let me end the event by saying, let us now take action in our own way, in our own capacity. Collectively, we can set this movement on fire and see positive change. Thank you all, wishing you a great commemoration, and I now close this meeting. Thank you.